There are an incredible amount of units within Anime Adventures. The game has been up for a while in total, and they've amassed a ton of characters all across different animes. There's a couple you wouldn't even expect to be put in a tower defense game. Now, of course, there are some who are clearly better than others, but which ones are those? How are you supposed to find the absolute peak of units within the sea of mid? Well, that's where this video will come in. Today, I'll be giving you guys 6 of the best units within the game right now. These units will be able to carry you through the story, get you good scores in tournaments, and ultimately help you out so much that you'll wonder how you've been living without them. No one is too trash to be carried by these units. Now, I plan to do another video like this in the future, so I'll be splitting this up kinda. For this one, I'm gonna leave off all the secret or unobtainable units that you need to get through trading, since I want this first part to be mostly useful to beginners. Because of this, all of the units in this list will be obtainable through the banner. And so with all of that out of the way, let's just get straight into it. So the first unit that I'll vouch for will be Usopp. When Usopp came out, people thought he was one of the worst characters, but he turned out being insanely meta. He came out mad updates ago, and he's still a solid pick for your team. One thing he's really great for is story mode. Even unevolved, he still does great damage. What's interesting about him is that he doesn't actually target units, and instead he plants traps on the track for the enemies to run through. You basically use him as an anchor in the back to catch leaks, or set up traps for a boss to run through. He also does true damage, so he's viable pretty much all the time, because this means that there's no enemy who can resist him. I'd highly recommend getting him. He's been used in tournaments recently as well, just like the most of this list. Usopp is also just a GOAT character. He's the epitome of strength and courage, and could probably beat Goku with no limbs, so just get him already, man. The next unit that every player should own is Oshi. Oshi is a mythic meta farm unit that's actually also tradable. In fact, the entire reason that they made her tradable was because she was so good. She was originally a battle pass unit, but she was so meta that the community outraged until they finally made her rollable on the banner. Oshi gives your units a damage buff regardless of element when placed, and also a discount on future upgrades for those units, taking off 20% and giving a 15% damage boost when maxed out. Another good thing about her is that traits aren't exactly useless on her, or at least one. If you get the golden trait on her, which is I think a 0.15% chance, it increases the max discount to 26%. Oshi is 100% a unit you should get. She's good in a lot of situations even if you don't have golden on her, and she's especially good when you need to upgrade a very expensive unit. Because of all these reasons, that's why she's on the list. I will say though, make sure to place her away from where you're going to be standing in the map. I find her music mad annoying and you cannot shut it off, so yeah, be careful with that. Now let's talk about a game defining unit. They're a huge reason that some of the most recent hard content is actually playable. In fact, they make the experience much easier. I'm talking about Griffith. Griffith is an interesting unit from the Berserk update, and he's interesting because he has 2 different forms. He has both a damage and buff form, but we're only focused on the buff one for now, since it's much more applicable everywhere. Griffith is a unit that actually takes units as sacrifices, and once you sacrifice enough gold, he transforms into one of his 2 forms. Since we want the buffing form, we have to sacrifice buffing units in order to achieve it. We have to sacrifice 100,000 gold worth of buffing units in order to achieve it. Once you get this form, you'll realize why he's so good. In his buff form, Griffith gives a 2 times damage boost to units of all elements across the entire map. He also buffs your teammates' units, not just yours. As I said before, he takes a lot of weight off your shoulders in harder game modes like raids and holiday events by increasing your unit's damage by double. His buff can also stack with another like Erwin or Wendy, increasing the damage even further. If you're looking to build a support team or just want a great buffing unit in general, Griffith should be your top pick. Now I will say he's a little hard to evolve since you have to sacrifice a lot of mythics or grind one stage a lot for its drops, but he is most certainly worth it, so I'd go get him now. What I won't talk about though is how much of a menace the actual character is. He's pretty notorious for doing some not nice things, but let's forget about the multiple war crimes that he's committed and move on to the next two units. Now these two units are some of the strongest in the game due to their incredibly unique ability and mechanic. Majin Vegeta and SS3 Goku have recently taken over the game as some of the top meta DPS units. Now you might be wondering why I'm covering both of them in one, and as I said before, they have an incredibly unique ability that brings them from great units to nearly perfect. At upgrade 7 when evolved, both the units receive a fusion ability which allows them to fuse together and increase their damage output by a ton. What makes the fusion even better is that Vegito gains both traits that your units had. This means that if you had a double trait on both of them, Vegito can get 4 traits, an insane buff. He also gets both of their elements, Storm and Light, making him a lot more versatile when it comes to enemies with resistances. He also just does unreal damage. At max level he's doing 100k damage a second, and that's without counting the traits both of your units should have. Since he's a fusion of 2 units, he's technically the easiest unit to get as a double unique. It's up to you if you want to roll on him. It definitely is going to take a lot of rerolls, but one thing I do have to say about the unit is that he is very expensive. I've used him mostly in raids and harder stages like events, but the last tourney he was actually viable since one of his elements provided more damage. So even though I didn't have the most meta team for the tourney, Vegito got me into the top 10. I highly recommend getting both Vegeta and Goku. They're both incredible units and are some of, if not the best, as of right now. Now the last unit I'll go over in this video is one that's mostly great for tournaments, and that unit is Law. Now don't get me wrong, he's a good unit in general, but he's seen the most usage in the tournament game mode. If you can't guess, in the game Law has his ability from the show, Shambles. When activated, Law shambles every enemy within his range and sends them backwards. You can make this ability much better though, since the distance he sends them backwards depends on his range. He'll send them back half the distance of his range, so if Law has 20 range, then he'll send them back by 10. I don't really know any value to call it, so just ignore it sounding weird. Law does decent damage, but he's most certainly carried by his incredibly great support ability. He can be an immense help in tournament if you have some units leaking, or in the regular game as well. I'd recommend getting him as he's definitely been required for some tournaments, including the current one. Also another GOAT character, shout out the Heart Pirates. And so with the last unit covered, that's gonna close out this video. I know that there's a ton of other units that are incredibly good that I didn't get to mention, but as I said before, I'll be making a second video just like this one, and I'll probably get to them in that one. So, since there is going to be a next video, if there were any units that you thought of that didn't make it to this list, then comment them down below so I can have some more to maybe consider for the next ones. I'll probably make it longer than 6. I just wanted to get this video out because it has been a long time since like my last good video. You know, I don't want to leave y'all starving again. So yeah, comment down below what units you want to see in the next video, and I will make sure to talk about them. If you want to be there for when I upload, then subscribing is probably the best way to make sure that you see it. I have other great videos that I've made, so you should definitely check those out as well. I think they're pretty entertaining. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll get to work on making the next Meta Units video, and I'll see y'all later.